is everyone doing? I hope you guys are having an amazing and fabulous day. And I hope you guys enjoy while we read X Virus up in here. Pandemic X Virus Mix Reader. Oh goodness, that sounds so wrong. Apologies. But anyways, without further ado, last time where we left off. So, if you guys don't remember, we were on Tinder and we somehow found Cody. You know, our little crushy. The one we were like, you know, kind of simping over respectfully. We matched with him. He didn't text us or anything. We got disappointed and we were like, damn. So, after, you know, eternally crying to ourselves, we started texting with Jossy because, as you guys remember, we were, you know, planning on doing something fun, having a small little party or something with her friends to meet them and, you know, socialize basically. And Jossy started texting about her boyfriend, and we kind of got like a like we kind of got that feeling, this man, he don't sound right. And and then we were like, that's a little sus. She's talking like she was kind of forced into saying it, you know what I'm saying? And then later on, as we kept talking, we kept getting slowly more and more concerned. But, you know, Joshie, you know, still texting us like without a missed beat at all, right? So we good, right? And the only thing that they had to confirm, the last text we sent was like to confirm to go to the library and study for biology or something like that. I can't remember specifically. And, you know, since Jossy was stopped answering us for some unknown reasons, which is not normal because Jossy, you know, answers in the beat, you know, we suddenly get a random, you know, text from Cody, and we're like, yay! And he wanted to make plans with us, and we were like, you know, simping on the other side of the phone, just like, just, you know, just like screaming in happiness. I was screaming for our happiness too. And we explained to him the plans that we have and all that, and just, you know, overthinking about this. And he's like, you probably shouldn't, are you sure? Like, you know, like about, because, you know, COVID and bitch, COVID. No, we got monkeypox and whatever else virus I cannot remember the name of, but it starts with an M. And he's like, should you be social distancing? And, you know, us being the social bird we are, like, I know, but I need friends. Like, I need to talk to someone. I need to be with someone, right? But honestly, I know damn well we would rather be with Cody for real. And Joshie, as again the little party that I mentioned earlier, right? Later on, you kept talking to Cody a little bit and just kind of left it as uncertain because you weren't sure because you didn't finalize the plan of going to the library with Jossy. But you also didn't finalize the plan with Cody either because you want to be double checking with Jossy, understandably, because we're not like that. You know, we're respectfully, we gotta, you know, no disrespect, you know what I'm saying? Because we just met Jossy from biology, right? And then a couple hours later, Joshie is still not communicating, very concerning. Later on, as we were watching our favorite TV show, we suddenly got a random ass call, which is, you know, you know, well, I shouldn't say that yet. Let me continue. So, it was from Jossy. She sounded like she was forced to make this call and basically saying like, hey, sorry, I gotta cancel, you know, hang out with my boyfriend. And as we were talking to her, we were like, and then we thought we heard a voice in the background that sounded like they were yelling at her. And she quickly ended the call and was kind of like faking her happiness and went on like, next time, yeah, thanks. And then something like that. And we were like, you know, we were like, the fuck? So, yeah. Anyways, back to the futuristic of time.
Everybody. So, I would like to give y'all some warnings because there is some things that are going to be happening. A lot. It's going to be a lot. So first, I'd like to mention that there will be implied of child abuse. It's not like in there, but you clearly will understand as I read. There will also be mentions of abusive / toxic relationships and stuff like that. And I would also like to mention that these will get quite tense and very, like, there will be a lot of tension going on and a lot of particularly very serious and sad subjects going to happen. So I would like to give you these 3 warnings to help you accompany as you read. I do wish you guys the best of luck. There will probably be more tension as we continue to read, and also I guess I should also mention this video is going to be very fucking long. So hold tight. If you guys don't mind listening to about 1 or 2 hours of this, then, or if you guys even wanted 1 or 2 hours of pure video recording of me reading, well, this is the perfect video for all of you guys. Mwah. Mwah. Perfection. Anyways, now back to the story.
Alright, we are now back in the present. But yeah, it was a little detailed, but we gotta get detailed with this because it's very, very detailed. Anyways, we're in chapter 6, I believe. Yes, I'm correct. I had to double check. Chapter 6, memories. By the way, trigger warnings. There will be implied of child abuse and neglect, and it says it doesn't go. And the author says they don't go into much detail, but it's still there. So there's y'all warning y'all. Make it aware. Be boop, be boop. Be prepared. Be prepared. Mentally prepare yourselves. But if y'all really don't want to go through this, just go ahead and skip to chapter 7. Okay? Don't force yourself to read to get into something that you are very uncomfortable with listening to. Alright? Alright, kapishka, kapushka. But Mom, I wanted to go to the Maple Street Fair. You said last week we could go together. Cody, I've already told you, haven't I? I'm busy. If you don't go find something to do with your time, I'll send Roger out to deal with you. The 7-year-old boy visibly shuddered at the threat, slowly lowering his tiny, pale-faced fist down to his side in absolute rejection. His mother never had time for him. He was well aware at this point, even through his 7-year-old innocence, that the word busy most likely meant drugs. Probably the type that had to do with needles and injections, though he wasn't quite sure. He thought he may have also seen some powdery white kind of stuff at one point or another on the living room table. Something that he knew for a fact that was not normal table sugar. He would have wiped away a tear if only he had any of those left. It would seem that he had been run dry a year or 2 ago, ever since Roger came into the picture. Roger was his mother's boyfriend, entering their lives when Cody was 5. He had tried his hardest to be friends with the new man. He remembered that first time when he lugged his entire box of Legos into the living room and hoped that Roger would want to build a bridge to run his toy cars across, or maybe even a skyscraper. Heck, they could even build an entire city. If only he had enough Legos for something like that. In his childlike mind, any city that he could manage to build would be amazing, even rivaling the huge cities like New York, London, or even Hong Kong. In this city, he would live to be on the top of the world, residing on the nicest apartment complex in the tallest building. He could be a famous actor or a rock star, or maybe even smart and successful like a doctor, scientist, or inventor. It was a wonderful delusion, taking him far, far away from the dingy, run-down, bug-infested apartment that he and his mother lived in. But Roger never seemed very interested in playing with him. Much like that day he was 5, all the way up until now, Roger only ever seemed interested in either getting high or hitting him when he became too loud. Cody couldn't always help it. It wasn't like he was able to control his burst of energy. Sometimes he talked too much, and other times he just couldn't listen to what others were saying to him. Other times he just couldn't sit still, which often got him in trouble at school. More than once, his teacher would call home and complain to his mother about how Cody had left his seat again. Cody had read ahead during group reading. Cody was fiddling with his pencil and distracting the other students. False. Cody had shouted out an answer in the middle of the class. Cody this, Cody that, Cody. Cody was bad. Cody was bad. Whenever the teacher had called home to complain, his mother would always take the complaints up with Roger, as she never seemed to want to deal with him herself. In fact, evidence of the last complaint was still itched up on the flesh of his skinny arm. A few circular burn marks from when Roger had decided that Cody was an appropriate ashtray for his cigarettes. It was this reason why Cody had opted to wearing long-sleeve shirts, even though it was currently the month of May, and the weather was quickly warming up. It was hot and sweaty, and even he couldn't deny the unpleasant odor that he began to admit, for his mother didn't allow him to shower every day. Yet, it was better than letting the world know about anything that would make him weird. Pushing his old, worn-up glasses up to his nose, he grimaced at the fact that we were currently being held together by nothing but cheap masking tape that he used to keep them from falling apart. It had taken him almost a year to convince his mother that he needed glasses because he had trouble seeing the backboard at school. He had recalled the feelings of absolute elation when he finally received his first pair of glasses, cheap and flimsy wire-framed lenses. Now he could see everything and anything that he wanted to. No longer would he be forced to kneel in front of the backboard with a clipboard just so he could see what was written there, pretending to ignore his classmates snickering at him behind his back. Now he could sit at his desk, just like everyone else. It didn't take him long to break them, though, in his clumsiness. He didn't mean to do it. It just sort of happened one day, praying to the highest heavens that he wouldn't get in trouble with Roger for breaking his glasses. He hastily taped them back together. If Roger noticed, he never really seemed to care. His mother certainly didn't take notice, for she never really took the time to look at him anyway. So his glasses have been in this state for quite some time now, and in that state they remained. Of course, this did not go without the ridicule from other kids at school. Everyone laughed at him, telling him how he was a poor nerd who couldn't keep his mouth shut. The other boys thought of him as a show-off for yelling out answers in class, and the girls thought he was disgusting. Sometimes they would even pretend that they liked him, or they wanted to be his girlfriend, only to run away with their groups of friends and laugh about how they managed to fool the nerd. Not that Cody never really believed them anyway, but no one would listen even if he did insist that it was true. Therefore, he opted only to wear his glasses if he absolutely had to. Turning away from his mother's closed and locked bedroom, he stuffed his hands deep into his pockets of his heavy sweatshirt. At first, he was planning on just going back to his room to build some more Legos, yet he thought of the Maple Street that fairly intrigued him. It was a fair that happened for 1 week every May, and it was the final day of the fair. The other kids at school always talked about it, never to him, of course, but he had overheard their conversations more than once. He had never been to the fair before. At one point last week, most likely when his mother was drunk and in rarely a good mood, she had promised that she would take him this year. Well, now he could see just how far that promise had taken him. Shifting his green eyes towards his mother's door once again, where both her and Roger were locked behind, he knew that if they were in fact once again ejecting themselves was somewhat questionable, they would be out of it for a while. This meant he was on his own. Surely they would never notice if he just slipped out, went to the fair for a little bit, then came back home. It wasn't even like Maple Syrup was all that far away from him anyway. He could easily walk there in 15 minutes. There weren't any really busy streets to cross. Sporting the rare smile, Cody hurried down the stairs and wrenched open the hall closet, pulling out his pair of blue Converse sneakers, the pair that had the hole in the toe. It was the only pair of shoes that he owned that didn't hurt his feet anymore. Being sure to to be extendingly quiet with opening the front door, he slipped through the tiny crack and closed it back up again. His heart thumped in excitement and anticipation. Even if he didn't have the money to buy any treats or play any games, he was still happy. He was going to the fair. Oh, poor thing. Poor thing. Anyways, continuing. It was certainly his lucky day, and he would remember it well, for these didn't happen often. Cody had managed to find an entire dollar bill on the ground at the fair, and he would spend it well. Strolling down Maple Street with a certain comfortability that he didn't have the opportunity to display all that often, Cody surveyed his options. Of course, something like a balloon sounded nice, or maybe he could even play a game. Although, if he won the game, which he seriously doubted, for he never won anything anyway, he would win a prize. This would mean taking the prize or a balloon home, which would equate to evidence that he did something that he wasn't supposed to. This could result in beatings or even withheld food. After all, his mother and Roger had used food as a punishment before. Cody didn't want to think about the beatings for now. He was at the fair, and he came here to enjoy himself. Just as he considered what exactly he should do with his dollar, Cody's stomach rumbled. He had gotten rather used to the empty feeling in his stomach, so it took him probably a bit longer than most to notice that he was in fact hungry. Recalling that last night's dinner, as well as this morning's breakfast, had both been confiscated, it was no surprise that he was hungry. Looking up and down the various stalls and standards of overpriced fair food, his heart sank a bit at realization that most of the things like cheeseburgers, hot dogs, pizza, and fries were overpriced, and he didn't have enough money for it. That's when he spotted the ice cream stand. Bouncing over excitingly, he knew what he wanted to order. A strawberry ice cream cone, of course. Strawberry was always his favorite, and he had never really had the chance to eat it. Running up to the stand, which didn't have a line, thankfully enough, as he was sure he wouldn't have the patience to wait in a long line, he proudly slapped his dollar bill on the counter. "One strawberry cone, please," he asked, remembering his manners as he flashed the elderly lady standing behind the counter a dimpled, gap-toothed grin. "Certainly," the lady kindly responded before eyeing the dollar bill that was resting on the counter before you. "Oh, but do you have 15 more cents? The final price for the ice cream cone is $1.15. Why don't you go ask for your parents? Just 15 more cents. Cody's heart sank into the pits of his stomach, and he couldn't even help his bottom lip as it started to tremble. "Oh," he said quietly, once again reaching for his dollar to take it back. "Sorry." The lady stared at him for a while, looking at him through wrinkled brown eyes. "Hold on there," she muttered, reaching a dark hand, slightly trembling due to age, towards a styrofoam cup that had been left on the counter for the purpose of collecting tips. Fishing around a bit in the cup, she selected 2 coins equating to the value of 15 cents. "One strawberry ice cream cone it is," she announced, smiling in the grandmotherly type of way at Cody. Cody couldn't help but wish that she was his grandmother. Accepting his ice cream, Cody smiled widely at the lady before thanking her profusely. Turning back around excitingly, Cody walked away from the ice cream stand in a search of a curb to sit on so he could eat his ice cream cone. He feared that if he walked and ate at the same time, he would just end up dropping his cone. It took him a few minutes, but he finally found a curb that no one was currently sitting on. Heading quickly towards the curb in order to claim his spot and finally indulge his sweet treat, he was unfortunately cut short as someone else, heading in the opposite direction of him, bumped into him rather harshly due to the crowds of the streets. Cody watched in a horrified slow motion as his ice cream cone plummeted towards the ground, splattering in a puddle of slightly melted pink stickiness on the burning hot asphalt. "Oh," Cody muttered, kneeling down next to the mess and covering his eyes with his sleeve. "My ice cream." His shoulders began to shake, and even though he previously assumed that he had no more tears left to cry, they began to leak out of his green eyes, as his tiny moment of elation and happiness had once again been snatched from him. Was this really all that life was? So cruel, heartless, and just unhappy? If so, he hated it. He hated it so much, and everyone in it. Oh no! A childish voice called out towards him, and he felt the presence of someone kneeling down next to him. That's not good, is it? Peeking out from behind his sleeve, Cody's vision was filled with a girl who was currently kneeling next to him on the ground. Her brown hair shone brilliantly in the heat of the day, and her brown eyes crinkled kindly as she grinned a small smile of sympathy at him. She looked to be about his age, maybe a year or two older, but not by much. Cody stared at her through critical eyes, wondering if she was here to make fun of him too. Here, she offered, holding out a dish of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I know it's not strawberry, but you do look like you need this more than I do. Cody wasn't sure what to make of it, but he would take it all the same. Picking his head up completely, he dried his tears with the sleeve of his sweatshirt, slowly extending his shaking, pale hands out, accepting the gift from the girl. There. The girl smiled. This one's in a dish, so hopefully you won't drop it this time. I didn't eat any, just in case if you were worried about catching my germs. YN? Someone called out, presumably the girl's mother, for she stood up to her full height and looked in the direction of her voice. I gotta go. Bye, she announced, rushing off towards her family after giving him another kind smile. Thanks, Cody murmured, sticking the plastic spoon into the mint chocolate chip ice cream, a flavor that he had never tried before, and took a bite. Somehow, this flavor seemed to be the sweetest of them all, his new favorite. Oh my goodness. Cody, you deserve justice! Oh my goodness. This is and the sad part is, there's actual real parents out there in this world that treat their children like this. Like nothing. Oh my goodness. It saddens me so much, bro. Because, like, this is reality. Like, this happens to people. And now that I think about it, I think this should be a lesson to every single one who's listening to this. If y'all see someone out there and they're being called all types of things and, like, kind of like similar to what Cody's been called, maybe they're not in the best place. Maybe they're in a very, dark place. Don't be like those people. Don't be like those people that just bring negativity to others just because you can. Bring positivity. Help people that maybe really do need that help and really do need just a little ounce of kindness to keep going. There is no need to be bullying someone for zero reason. Absolutely not. Because all it takes is just that one extra little push to drive them to off the edge. So be aware and be kind to those people around you if you can. Don't be like the people that I've been reading about. Don't be like them. Be better. Be smarter. Don't be dumb. Remember, kindness is not hard to do. Kindness is one of those things that not a lot of people like to do, but yet it's so easy to do. So just, be kind, be gentle, and respect everyone that's around you as long as they respect you as well. Don't be a jerk. Anyways, now continuing on, because it's so sad. I'm like, so R.I.P. Cody, man. We a real one. YN, we a real one. We is a real one. Also, the author mentions that my heart broke for the poor baby boy. Mine too, man. Mine too. Imagine how I feel. Just imagine. Anyway, Chapter 7, Rivals. It was a rather hot day, as it was still quite early in the month of September. It had always seemed like the worst of the summer heat came at the very end. For some strange reason, it had certainly made wearing a mask all the more uncomfortable, but you felt the need to keep it on while walking down the slightly busy street, as it was difficult to socially distance on the sidewalks. You were currently walking along the main road of the small college town that sat just on the edge of campus, with the campus on one side of the street and the border of the town on the other. With the street being right next to the campus. It was naturally lined with fast food restaurants, cafes, bars, apartment buildings, and countless stores selling college appeal, books and supplies, and just the exact type of groceries that any college student would find useful. Therefore, the sidewalk had the tendency to become rather crowded, even in the midst of the pandemic. You were currently heading for your study date with Cody. Ooh. As it was nearing the predetermined meeting time of 3 in the afternoon. You had, for the most part of your morning, suffered through your online classes with mixed feelings of excitement upon seeing Cody again, and worry for Jossy. You had not heard from her since the previous evening when she had called you, and you couldn't help but feel like something was terribly off. You had even tried to text her a few times, but still had yet to receive a response. Attempting to push the worry that you felt for your new friend into a different corner of your mind for the time being, you continued onward towards your date with Cody. In fact, you were a bit early, as the time was only 2:45 p.m., and you had fully expected to arrive before him. However, that just meant that you could snag a table for the both of you and perhaps get both of your orders in. A macchiato for you and a latte for him, of course. You had wished it wasn't so damn hot and humid. You didn't want to be seen as a sweaty mess when you met Cody, as you were currently sweating profusely behind your mask. All you wanted to do was arrive at the cafe, which was mere a block away from you, and sit down at your table so you could take your mask off. Crossing the final side street, you breathed a sigh of relief at the sight of the cafe. It was a cute little red brick building with a cream-colored roof. Pale blue curtains covered the front windows. Normally, they were parted open during business hours, but lately it had been pulled closed in order to further communicate with that all-indoor seating that was currently closed. Luckily for the cafe, there was a sizable patio around the back, beautifully decorated with trees, ferns, and flowers. It hosted several circular glass tables with coral pink umbrellas shielding their customers from the horrifically hot burning hot sun. Needless to say, this cafe was quite popular with the university students for study groups, pair of friends, or even occasional first dates. Nice. Now I want to go to this cafe. Heading around back towards the patio, you breathed a sigh of irritation at the fact that all the tables were currently occupied. You supposed that it was all to be expected. After all, this was a rather popular cafe. Just as you were about to take a seat on the tiny bench that had been pushed against one of the cafe walls for that exact purpose of customers waiting for a table, you couldn't help but do a double take. In one of the chairs facing the table was the furthest away from you. You saw the familiar dark brown hair that belonged to Cody, who was currently sitting with his back facing to you. So it made sense to why he didn't call you over right away. He hadn't even seen you yet. He was wearing a long-sleeved navy white and gray flannel jacket that looked to be a bit too big for him, and a pair of black jeans. You were wondering what exactly had possessed him to wear such hot-looking clothing, considering that the day was scorching. But if that was his fashion preference, then so be it. Just as you were about to call out his name and make your way over to the table, you stopped short, for he wasn't sitting there alone. Your heart wanted to melt, yet beat erratically at the same time in the strange and foreign emotion that you never really felt before: jealousy. Why did you care so much that Cody was with another girl? You never really cared in the past if other people you dated spent time with others. After all, it was normal and natural. You had even had suspicions that an ex-girlfriend of yours had someone else on the side, and all you really did was break up with her and move on without such much of a care in the world. After all, there were other people today, and not everyone was going to work out. You had even experimented a bit with open relationships, and while you had come to the conclusion that ultimately they weren't your number one preference, it was never because of things like jealousy. So why did you care so much? Maybe he wasn't even on a date with this girl. Perhaps they were only friends. Or maybe she was one of his students. Maybe he liked to tutor on the side, and she was a potential client of his. This could be answered by the textbook that he was sitting next to him on the table, although it wasn't open. There was no other notebooks, papers, or pencils on the desk, and the girl had no school supplies with her. Only a cute little pink handbag that certainly wasn't large enough to carry stuff for school. Narrowing your eyes a bit as you watched the two from your spot, you could hear Cody's giggle as he giggled at something that the girl had said, before taking a sip of his iced latte. You wanted to growl at the fact that the girl had a Machado sitting in front of her. Taking a deep breath, you wiped your scowl off your face and ultimately settled for a neutral expression before preparing to approach the two. You would not be rude to the girl, but you immediately decided that you wouldn't be friendly either. Another quality that was unlike you. But you were willing to let that go for the meantime. After all, the time was now 2:55, and you only had 5 minutes before you agreed to meet up. In arriving 5 minutes before, a mutually decided time up was natural, wasn't it? See, I said overthinking. Approaching the table, you kept your expression blank as you plopped your bag down on the empty seat next to Cody, as the girl was currently sitting across from him, instantly cutting the girl off from whatever completely hilarious story she was currently telling Cody. You were pleased to know that you had managed to keep the look in your eye bland as you observed the way his face hinted the betrayal of amusement towards the girl's words. It was obvious that the two were having quite the hysterical conversation. Well, aren't you a comedian? You jeered sarcastically in your head at the girl, almost surprising yourself at the hostility of your thoughts. Oh, YN! Cody explained, smiling at you. You're early. Actually, I'm on time. You informed him monotonously. I can't say that word. Pulling out your phone and sticking it in front of his face in order to show him that it was now 2:57. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, Cody. Don't do it to us, bro. Oh my goodness. Are we gonna become killers after this? Are we gonna become killers? We're gonna, gonna pluck out. Oh my goodness. Cody laughed a little bit sheepishly. I guess I lost track of time. Cody? The girl sitting across from him called out in a sugary, sweet voice. Her shoulder-length, bleached blonde hair fluttering softly in the breeze as she stared at him through pale blue eyes. Now that you were able to observe her up close, you noticed that she wore a lot of makeup. And it wasn't even flattering. Like the way Jossy applied it. Instead, she opted to cake on the shade of foundation that was too pale for her skin tone, mascara clumped, and her eyeliner too dark for her eyes. I think we're judging a bit too much, girl. You could even see the dusting of powder across her nose, and it took everything in you had to not roll your eyes at her. Her earrings were too gaudy. Her roots were starting to come in, and her polish on her fingernails were starting to chip. You forced back a cough at the overpowering odor of her perfume, and you even disliked the way she breathed. You just don't like her in general. You ignored the tiny voice in the back of your mind whispering to you that jealous was a powerful emotion, and perhaps she really wasn't as ugly as you were seeing her. But you would really struggle to see her in any other light. You could see nothing but flaws through the midst of envy. Who's this? The girl continued to question Cody, eyeing you with most likely the same amount of distaste as you were currently feeling towards her. She's my friend, Cody explained happily, seemingly clueless towards the clear-cut tension in the area. I told her I'd help her with some of her biology homework. Bruh, if he said this is his girlfriend, I would have run out that thing. I'd be like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm done. Oh my goodness, I'm done. For real, I would have cried, bro. Oh, hell no. What I would have said. Okay. I told her I'd help her with some of her biology homework. The girl hummed, opening her bag and digging through it for a bit as she located a tube of cherry red lipstick, slowly applying it to her lips. She let out an obnoxious smacking sound in an effort to fully coat her lips as she gave you a side-eyed glance. I guess you did mention you were meeting a friend in the afternoon. I just thought you meant this friend meant a guy. Is there something wrong with him having friends that are girls? You asked rather hypocritically as you raised an eyebrow in her direction. At least you were better at masking your jealousy than she was. The girl scoffed in return. As long as you stayed in your lane. Excuse me? You allow a bewildered laugh. Not only was this girl awful looking, but she had a horrid personality. Certainly Cody wouldn't go for someone as wretched as her, would he? Cody muttered a bit awkwardly, you guys don't need to fight or anything. I'm gonna help her out with her homework, okay, Roxy? I'll text you later. Sure, he texts her, but not me.
20 minutes later.
Okay, I had to take a break from like laughing so much because this is fucking hilarious. Oh goodness. Oh my goodness. Because I was like, this girl gonna pick a fight out this girl for real. Okay. Okay, we're good. We're good. Sure, he texts her, but not me. You thought rather childishly as Roxy began to gather up her things and stand up hastily from her seat, pulling a pair of oversized sunglasses out of her bag and placing them on her face. She ignored you as she sent a wide grin on Cody's way. Okay, I'm excited for our pizza date tonight, she said shrilly, making sure to insinuate each and every syllable of her sentence in an effort to indirectly inform you that Cody had plans for the night, and that they were not with you. Your place, right? As long as you don't mind that's a bit small, Cody replied rather innocently, grinning at her as she finally began to take her leave. Oh, believe me, she said seductively, taking a moment to eye you again from behind her sunglasses as she began to put her mask back on her face. You imagined that she would get red lipstick all over the inside of her mask, and found her a bit stupid for putting lipstick on it in the first place. I don't mind small places. Turning around, she began to make a rather dramatic exit out of the cafe, purposely swishing her hips this way and that, and you couldn't help but roll your eyes this time at how desperately she was playing the entire situation. So, who was that? You asked in a voice that hinted at nothing but curiously as you sat down in the seat next to Cody. Oh, just someone I met on Tinder, Cody said nonchalantly as he opened his textbook up and pulled a glass case out of his bag. So I guess you're getting pitsy with her tonight then, huh? You questioned, pulling out a few notebooks of your own as you prepared for your study session. Feeling rather dejected indeed that Cody had went out and made pizza plans with her when he had already asked you to go with him just the previous day. Maybe his date went very well and he liked her a lot. For some reason, you couldn't quite wrap your head around it. Well, you said that you had plans for this evening, so Cody began awkwardly before trailing off to silence. Cody, I love you with all my heart, but respectfully, I'm gonna need you to clear this bullshit. I can't tell if you're trying to make us jealous. I can't tell, but I have a feeling you might be trying to, so just watch. Just watch. I feel like we're gonna make him jealous. Please. I need the revenge. Anyways, secret side revenge. Or is it worth it? Maybe not. Most likely not. Who knows? No, it's okay, you muttered before flipping the appropriate page in your textbook. Let's just start looking at this assignment, if that's okay with you. You lightly pushed Roxy's empty mosquito cup away from you, not wanting to indulge in the drink anymore. You could just order a black coffee or something else of that nature. Just before you were about to begin working on your assignment with Cody, you had received a text message, apologizing to Cody before picking up your phone, to which he responded with a wide smile indicating that he didn't care if you used your phone. He picked up his own phone too, most likely to text Roxy. You thought rather peevishly. You smiled a bit and felt a rush of relief as you saw that text message that was from Jossy. Opening it up, Jossy was confirming the fact that the small get-together with her and her friends was indeed still planned for that night, then to meet up at her boyfriend's apartment at 8. He felt feelings of jealousy temporarily evaporating. Looks like you were going to meet Jossy's boyfriend. Oh my goodness. I know, it's so racy. I like it. But bro, it's so ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Honestly, fuck that what other girl. I don't even remember her name. I'm in the right place now. Anyways, chapter 8, I believe. Don't worry, I will correct myself if I'm wrong. Anyways, notions. Sighing deeply in a rather uncharacteristic manner expiration, Cody folded his arms and even began to tap his foot as he considered the current of options available to him. It was obvious that his virus, the one that he had engineered and had released upon the world, started the entire pandemic to begin with, wasn't strong enough. It was apparent that people weren't taking it very seriously. They weren't really all that afraid. They seemed to think that they all had to do was put a piece of cloth over their face. The vast majority of them didn't even wear their masks properly anyway. And maybe even stand a few feet apart from each other, and they'd be fine. It certainly wouldn't stop people from participating in group gatherings either. Case in point, YN and the other girl that she was talking to in biology class. She just knew that she was the one that YN was supposed to be meeting tonight, and his virus wasn't enough to stop her. Therefore, he felt it necessary to return to work on this virus. He wouldn't create a new one, but merely tweak and fine-tune the old one, mutate it a bit, and develop a new, more alarming strain before selling it on the dark web to someone other than whose moral compass was just as shitty as his was. Off to some far-off corner of the world his virus would go to, where someone else would release it to the public. Outbreaks in fair cities would occur, and would quickly into a worldwide panic and pen whatever as its creation spread, infecting the individual after individual, falling to discriminate between the rich and poor, strong and weak, and famous and unknown. Soon enough, a case or two would break out in the next cities over, and then the neighboring cities. It wouldn't be long before people in this very town would start getting it. They would cover everything. Sure, the death toll would go up, but just enough for the virus to become something that the people took a bit more seriously. Of course, he would protect her. He would keep her safe, making sure she wouldn't get sick. She would maybe even come to him for help, just like she did with her biology homework, because in the end, she would accept that she needed him. Oh my goodness. Hey, yeah, you're going on the date with this ugly ass blonde chick. I'm obviously a little jealous too, because what the fuck, man? It's messed up. But of course, developing a new strain of his virus meant that he needed to test it out before anything else. That's where the Tinder came into play. He liked to use this app to lure his test subjects and get them over to his house. The house that he had managed to buy from a sizable amount of money he had made from selling the first virus he had ever created. It was a rather tame virus, nothing like the one he was currently working on, but there were many weirdos in the dark web that were willing to spend a lot of money on it. Luckily enough, these funds were also sufficient for him to build his very own laboratory and isolation chamber in his house. They were both exceedingly small, but the lab was big enough for his purposes, and the isolation chamber was spacious enough to house maybe two test subjects. Well, Roxy did claim that she liked small places. This bitch! Oh, now I see. That's why he didn't accept. Oh, I see. I'm not jealous anymore. I'm very happy with you. And we're like, dum dum, dum dum, like that guy that like does that. Oh, he keeps. Oh my god, reminding me every day. Alright. Okay, let me read that again. Well, Roxy did claim she liked small spaces. Cody giggled. If he had to be honest, he had scheduled this so-called date with Roxy and his meeting time with Wyan to overlap on purpose. He wanted her to feel jealous, or like there was some type of competition out there. After all, it was obvious that she was currently putting him on the back burner. Although he was more than just used to this type of treatment from just about anyone else. It nearly killed him when Wyan did it too. He wanted to be desired, fought over, and simply needed by someone else. Needed by her. He craved it. He wanted her to panic just a bit. To worry that if she didn't step up her game, she would lose him to someone else. While this would never happen either way, it was not like she knew that. Oh my goodness, this bitch. Yet the problem was, she didn't really seem bothered by the fact that he extended his pizza date invitation to Roxy instead. She seemed genuinely curious, but that was about it. In fact, she seemed a bit more interested in her phone and who she was talking to on there than rather his shenanigans with Roxy. She didn't even look bothered at the fact that Cody had brought a Machado from Roxy. She didn't even seem upset in the slightest. And even after they had wrapped up their study date, she smiled at him and said that she hoped he had fun tonight. He had casually asked her, for conversation's sake of course, what she was planning on doing with her time that evening, to which he merely replied, hanging out with friends. The thing is, she wasn't supposed to be acting like that. She wasn't supposed to care. She was supposed to be envious, and she needed to show it. Well, darling, just because they don't show it doesn't mean it's not there. It's like, someone acting really stupid. You really being really pissed, but you don't show it, and you're like, okay, I'm out of here. Just simple comment, and that's how you walk out. But that doesn't mean I ain't pissed. That just means I'm just acting in a more sophisticated manner, like Hannibal. Hannibal? It's a cannibal. And dun 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 dun. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. He's like, I need the action. Like, I need to see it. You ain't gonna see it, but you're probably gonna feel it maybe eventually. He needed that, and it didn't make sense why she wasn't. Why was she behaving the exact opposite of how he had envisioned things, or how he needed things to be? Needed her to be. It didn't make sense. Letting out a humorless laugh this time, Cody began to energetically bounce around in his lab, straightening things up and beginning to prepare for the experiments that were soon to come. After all, Roxy was supposed to show up in an hour, and he needed to be ready. Time skip. Approaching the apartment up on the 6th floor of the building, you took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. Sure, you would be nice and polite to Jossy's boyfriend, although you were fully prepared to go in there and not like him. For the briefest second in time, your mind had distastefully wandered back to Cody and what he was possibly doing with Roxy at this very moment. But you managed to chase it away. No longer would you allow thoughts of Cody to control and dictate your mind, infecting your brain like one of those most toxic diseases out there. Obsession. You had came here to hang out with Jossy, as well as to appropriately assess the situation for yourself and determine if her boyfriend was really a threat to her or not. And you would not allow your mind to be clouded by Cody. You would push him away and shove him out, at least for now anyway. Heavy footsteps on the other side of the door indicated that someone was approaching, and you felt your breath being launched in your throat. Those steps sounded big, authoritative, and scary. You hoped that Jossy was in there too, and that there were a few other people in there with her, for you certainly didn't want to be alone with this guy, and you didn't want Jossy to be either. The door was pulled open, and on the other side stood a man that was just about as scary looking and intimidating as you had imagined. You wanted to take a step away, but refrained yourself from doing so. He was massive, tall, muscular, and bulky. It was obvious that he was a gym rat, and you wouldn't even be surprised if he had spent the last few of the university gym lifting weights in an attempt to bulk up and make his muscles look bigger than they actually were. He had short, black hair, brown eyes, and tan skin. You suppose that he was handsome, and he had an appealing face, but that is, if his expression wasn't hard and stern, that is. Hi. You took it upon yourself to extend a greeting, as well as what your purposes for standing at the door to his apartment was. I'm Jossy's friend. She mentioned a little get-together tonight and told me to come to this address. Instead of answering you inquiringly, the big guy merely let out a sigh before looking over his shoulder and bellowing out for his girlfriend. Jocelyn? You eternally cringed. Didn't Jossy say she didn't like to be being referred by her full name? You were quickly beginning to understand the reason why. The sound of quickened steps hit your ears as someone, as you presumed to be Jossy, hurried down the hallway and towards the door. Why, Anne? She gasped, coming to a stop next to her boyfriend with slightly widened eyes. Thank you for coming, but I think we agreed that the start time was 8. She babbled a bit nervously, brown eyes shifting up to the face of her boyfriend as she did so. Her body language screamed fear and timidness as her shoulders were tense, and her torso seemed to curl in on itself. She turned her gaze towards her shoes as she generally wrapped one of her hands around her opposite wrist, and your heart went out for her. You had seen enough. Somehow or another, you had to get her out of there. Oh, am I early? You asked softly, pulling out your phone and glancing up at the time. The screen said 7:50, so you didn't assume yourself to be obnoxiously early. Maybe you should, come back in 10 minutes or something? Josie asked quietly as she looked back up at her boyfriend for further confirmation, only to jump a bit at the rather nasty glare that he had shot her way. She obviously said the wrong thing. Well, I mean, it's kind of pointless to go and wait outside for 10 minutes, you said, turning your gaze fully on to Jossie's boyfriend this time. I didn't realize that showing up 10 minutes early would be a problem. You folded your arms across your chest, hoping to communicate that you had no further plans to leave Jossie alone with this man for not even longer than a second. Somewhere deep down inside you, you just knew that something bad would happen to Jossie if you left for even just 10 more minutes. Instead of responding to you, Jossie's boyfriend merely turned his frightening gaze onto Jossie. I thought I told you I'd to only invite people that I knew and approved of, no doubt. You thought in anger, yet didn't voice your jeering thoughts. Damien, please. I just thought she would be okay, she scrambled to explain, and you wanted to cry at the hint of desperation on the edge of her voice as she pleaded with her boyfriend. She's just the girl I told you about, the one in my biology class. You sighed once again and looked at Damien. This boy's named after my... Oh, hell no. Yeah, I can't tell y'all who's his name after. Sorry, y'all. Anyway, and looked at Damien through eyes that you could only hope to communicate with him that you were not planning on going anywhere. Of course, that didn't hold the hint of fear that you felt, since it was becoming more obvious to you that this guy saw no problem with hitting women. Damien finally let out a heavy sigh of his own, before abruptly turning around and beginning to walk down the hallway which led to the rest of the apartment. Get in then if you must, he grunted, before standing in the open doorway at the other end of the hallway and staring Jossie and you down, almost as if he was daring the two of you to go anywhere else besides deeper into the apartment. Reaching out a comforting hand out, you wrapped it around Jossie's slender wrist gently and comfortingly, attempting to catch her eye. Luckily for you, the hallway was slightly darkened, and Damien was standing far enough away that he most likely would not be able to pick up on the silent communication that had just been between you two. Jossie finally looked up, looking at you with horrifyingly sad and absolutely terrified, pleading eyes. She was screaming silently for help. Let me help you get out. Your mouth towards her, words so quiet, your voice wouldn't even be considered a whisper. Jossie returned your offer with one single word, in equal quietness as you. Please. Fuck Damien! Yes, fuck Damien. Yes. And by the way, author says Cody is supposed to be unhinged in this chapter, so it's normal. And his internal dialogue with Wine and how she's not acting how she's supposed to act is very important. Yeah, keep that in mind, y'all. Keep that in mind. But fuck Damien. I hope Jossie gets the balls enough to go fuck his mom. Now that would be very funny. All right, y'all. So I believe it's in chapter 9, Insecurities. Letting out a sigh of distaste and shaking her head in disapproval at the reflection in the mirror. Roxy pursed her lips together as she stared at herself. It was no secret that cheap department store makeup would only take her so far. But no matter how many times she had spent watching makeup tutorials in an effort to brush up on her skills, she could never seem to match up anywhere even close to those girls on TikTok or YouTube. All those girls that managed to look 20 times prettier than her, almost effortlessly. Shaking her head once again, she instead opted to continue her beauty routine, brown eyes shifting towards the screen of her phone as she did so. She had only about 30 more minutes left until she was to leave her tiny apartment, and she had to be sure to be absolutely ready. It had been forever since she had been on a date, and she didn't really want to screw this up. Returning her attention back on her reflection in front of her, she held one eye open with her thumb and forefinger as she used a finger of her opposite hand to place a blue-pilled pale blue colored contact back into her eye. The contact lenses had the tendency to itch and bother her eyes, so she tried to keep them out as much as she could. After her contacts were placed into both eyes and her makeup was completed, even though Roxy was still dissatisfied with the results, she gingerly touched the black roots of her natural hair that was starting to show. She would have to look getting into her hair bleached again. But for now, this was the best that she could do. She didn't have the time to worry about bleaching her hair now. She wondered if she even had any bleach left. Opening up a cupboard and pushing a few containers of skin whitening cream and bottles of diet pills aside, she clicked her tongue in annoyance to learn that she didn't have any left. Did she even have the funds to buy more at this point? She realized that she was currently running on a tight month financially. Yet she supposed that if she had to choose between groceries and beauty products, the choice was exceedingly oblivious to her. After all, there was no way that she could bother her family for more money this month. Her parents were first-generation immigrants to this country. They came from Vietnam and worked hard for the little that they had. Roxy was just relieved that she was able to go to school on a full scholarship, as she was the valedictorian at her high school. Unfortunately, her scholarship didn't help with living expenses, and it was expensive to live on her own. Even if she had chosen the cheapest apartment that she could find, the type of apartment that lacked AC and had problems with ants, but she could deal because she knew that once she graduated with her degree in nuclear engineering, she could be more than made. She could buy a house for her parents even, and then they could finally retire and rest. Letting out a tiny groan, Roxy gave up on the idea of getting her hair bleached this month. Turning around on her heel and heading into the main room of her studio apartment, Roxy began the part of her routine that she hated the most, getting dressed. Roxy despised her body. She hated how tiny and petite she was, no curves and completely flat. She was the type of girl that sometimes even was mistaken for a child. She had lost count of the amount of times that she had been offered a children's menu at the restaurant. Everyone seeming to think that she was 12 years old and not 22. She couldn't wait for the day to come when she would be able to afford implants. Maybe then she would look a bit more womanly. Opening her closet and scanning the few options that were available to her, as she never really bought clothes and only added to her wardrobe when she came across an amazing deal at a thrift store, she looked in an ultimate rejection at a short and skimpy black dress that had been hanging in her closet for the better part of the past year. Maybe someday she could wear it after she'd put on a bit more weight. After all, she was still in recovery. She had resisted the temptation to vomit a meal for the past week now, and had put on 2 whole pounds. Still, it wasn't enough for this dress. Maybe someday, but not today. That's sad, man. Continuing to push on a few hangers aside, Roxy realized that she was really pressed for time. She really liked Cody, though, and she wanted to impress him. She wished that she could wear something fashionable and undeniably sexy, but she didn't have the body for it. You do have the body, you just don't realize it. Realizing that she really needed to hurry up and get a move on with her decision, Roxy muttered a few choice words in Vietnamese as she snatched a form of fitting plain black shirt out of her closet and a simple pair of denim shorts. Her shirt was just a bit of a low cut, and the style that could be considered flirty. If she had actual boobs, that is. After getting dressed, she glanced at herself in the mirror again, and she couldn't help but grab a sweater to cover herself up as an extra precaution. At least she could use the sweater to keep herself covered if she was nervous, or simply ditch it later if she had managed to gain her confidence. Unlikely, but still possible if she had consumed a glass of wine or two. Finally making her way out of her apartment, Roxy didn't fail to grab her oversized sunglasses on the way out, even though it was quickly growing dark and the sun was starting to diminish. Not only for materialistic purposes, but there was also another purpose why Roxy had decided to bleach her hair in blonde and wear blue contacts. as well as never failed to put on her sunglasses and mask whenever she went out. After all, this virus had originated from Asia, and not from her home country, Vietnam, but not far away from it either. She was well aware of the anti-Asian hate that was unfortunately trending, and it certainly made her afraid to go outside. While she realized she couldn't fool everyone and she possessed certain physical features that she was unable to change, at least she could feel a little bit more protected in the fake and materialistic shield that she had built around herself. Taking a deep breath, she took it upon herself to make a serious attitude adjustment. She had found it a bit easy to learn how to be more confident, even if underneath all of that she was nervous. Looking back at the altercation that she had with Cody's friend at the cafe, she was able to acknowledge that she probably did come across as a bit bitchy. Perhaps she shouldn't have taken her words too far, but she couldn't deny that she was jealous of the girl. She was jealous at how comfortable the girl felt in just plopping herself down on the chair directly next to Cody, and her heart sank at the way he had smiled at her. Roxy didn't feel comfortable enough to sit next to him, and she doubted she even felt confident enough to even do anything with him tonight anyway. Yet a lack of confidence was not sexy. She had to play her part, and she needed to play it well. Continuing to walk down the street, Roxy couldn't help but hope that Cody's... Y'all, my mouth just twitched. Oh my goodness. My mouth just twitched and what just happened? My mouth just twitched and I was like... Continuing on. That was kind of weird, but continuing on. Continuing to walk down the street, Roxy couldn't help but hope that Cody's place wasn't as small as he had let on. She hoped that he wouldn't be able to hear her in the bathroom as she shoved her finger down her throat in an effort to expel the pizza that she would consume. She didn't want to break her streak, but for some reason she felt tonight she may. It was already difficult enough to not force herself to vomit the Machado that she had drank earlier that afternoon, that one that Cody had bought her. She drank it in order to be polite, but it was made with whole milk. Whole milk was definitely high up her list as far as unsafe foods went. She wished that Cody would have let her order a black coffee instead, or at least asked for her consent before just ordering something seemingly random off the menu. Roxy's eye narrowed in confusion as she continued to walk down the streets and roads, the buildings that lined up either slowly morphing into houses. They started as small and most modest-sized homes, but as she continued to walk, the houses began to grow bigger and more luxurious. Didn't Cody say that he lived in a small place? She assumed that he lived in a cheap apartment like hers, or maybe even one of the dorms. She had the right address. Did she have the right address? Maybe she should text him for further confirmation, or maybe she should just turn around and go back home. She did not like the ugly feeling in her gut that she was currently experiencing. The feeling that something was off, or that something would go wrong. Yeah, girl, turn around and go home. But then again, you just go probably back to your old ways, and I don't want that. Time skip. This is back to us, by the way. You made it a point to sit directly next to Jossy on the sofa in the living room of Damien's apartment. It was obvious that by arriving only 10 minutes early, that he still managed to interrupt what was most likely a heated argument. You couldn't say that you were sorry about that, though. The heavy tension in the room, which managed to linger for 15 agonizing minutes, was finally cut around 8:05 as some of Jesse's and Damien's guests began to arrive. It was very interesting to know how Damien's attitude did a complete 180. Now that there were more people around, that people that he obviously approved of and was very comfortable with, began to instantly play the part of the kind, funny, and loving boyfriend. He engaged his other guests in conversation, laughed at jokes that they made, told funny stories, and made sure that everyone was aware that his refrigerator was well stocked with beers, and that everyone was free to help themselves. You didn't fail to notice the authoritative glance that he would send you in Jossy's way every now and then. It was exceedingly apparent to you that he was sending you both silent messages. He was watching you, and he was suspicious to the fact that two of you were planning something. Jossy, you noted, attempted to to her absolute best to play her part and appear to be relaxed. But it didn't help. It didn't seem to come as effortlessly for her. You could tell that she was scared if she wasn't convincing enough. Damien would be upset with her. You had already whispered to her that Damien's back was turned and that under absolutely no circumstances would you leave her alone, and that you would get her out of there safely. However, it didn't seem to do much to calm her down or lighten her mood. You hoped that Damien would drink too much and in his drunk stupor or even pass out. You and Jossy would sneak out undetected. Unfortunately for you, though, you kind of suspected that this would not happen, and that Damien would remain in control of himself and how much he drank, in an effort to keep constant tabs on you and Jossy. Maybe he even had one of his buddies on his side as an extra lookout. Someone who would make sure that Jossy wouldn't leave the apartment if he had to go to the bathroom or something. There was no way of telling, and this fact disturbed you. It was apparent that at one point or another, an altercation was inevitable. Ooh, shit. Now, as you guys know, I don't like making long things, so this might not be able to be posted on Sunday like I wanted to. But just one more wouldn't hurt. Just one more. Yes! Okay. I believe we're either in chapter 9 or chapter 10. I'll probably correct myself right now. Okay. Chapter 9 or 10, Confessions. Excuse me. Against her better judgment, Roxy ultimately carried on and pursued her date with Cody. Perhaps it was a bit stupid to do so, as she had definitely heard of before something that one's gut feeling being correct more than often than not. However, all things considered, she had been out of the dating pool for far too long. It had taken her forever to get over her ex, who had decided that her issues, as he liked to put it, were too heavy and depressing for him to handle. So he left her, instead sought after another girl who was 10 times more confident than her. After all, confidence was sexy. Maybe this was why she felt so threatened by Cody's friend, whose very aura just screamed confidence. It was a quality that she wished desperately to have, yet could never quite achieve internally. It was impressive enough that she learned how to eradicate an imitation of the quantity over the past year or two that she had been alone, and falsely was the very reason why she was able to stag a date with Cody in the first place. She worked so hard to get herself where she was, and she wasn't about to give up so easily just because something about his housing situation was a bit unorthodox. Perhaps he lived in such a big house with a few roommates even, and he was only speaking about living in a small space because his bedroom was a bit on the smaller size. That definitely made sense, for Roxy was aware that there were many college students that chose to rent an apartment or sometimes even a house together. Turning onto the street that Cody had clearly stated he lived on, Roxy's heart rate began to increase as every step she took delivered her closer to Cody. Eyes darting across each side of the street as she passed by a new house in order to check the house number. She forced herself to conform to a more self-assured pace as she held her head just a bit higher. She would not screw this up. Her stomach coiled and turned unpleasantly in some sort of weird mixture of hunger and apprehension. I don't know how to probably say that word. Apologies. Finally, she came to a stop in front of the house that had looked just about the same as any other on the street. 561 Campus Street. The address that Cody had texted to her. It was a pleasant 2-story brick building that had a wrap-around porch and a few towering oak trees standing in the front yard. There was a fenced-in backyard that looked like it hosted a few apple trees as well, but the lawn was a bit uncared for. There were no flowers or plants lining up the beds that surrounded the house, unlike all the other properties on the street, and the driveway was a bit cracked and definitely needed treatment. It was evident that Cody and his possible roommate were slacking when it came to mowing the lawn or doing any other type of outside maintenance. There were many windows, but all the curtains and blinds were shut tight, preventing any natural light from entering. Even so, the house seemed nice enough, and was by no means a dump. Therefore, Roxy didn't feel too deterred by entering. Approaching the front door, Roxy took a moment to fix her hair and made sure that it was laying just perfectly and bouncing lightly around her shoulders, before reaching up a skinny arm and ringing the doorbell, the sleeve of her light pink lacy sweatshirt falling down her forearm as she did so. Stepping back a bit, Roxy waited a few seconds, which turned into a few minutes. Perfectly plucked eyebrows crinkled in confusion. She reached forward and rang the doorbell again. Certainly he didn't forget, did he? Roxy realized quite early that Cody had the tendency to be rather scatterbrained. But he wouldn't just forget about her, would he? Or maybe he was with her instead. It would make sense. After all, who would want to hang out on a potential date? Or, what am I saying? After all, who would want to hang out or potentially date Roxy when they could have someone fun, carefree, pretty, and confident like her? Before her fears could get the best of her, though, she heard the sound of quickened footsteps pouncing on the other side of the door. Soon enough, the doorknob began to jiggle as someone was obviously fiddling with the lock. And Roxy thought that she may have heard the sound of a key being dropped on the floor, causing her to giggle. His clumsiness was the one feature that she had always been attracted to, and it definitely wasn't a quality that was difficult to find in a guy. It was definitely a quality that was difficult to find in a guy. Actually, everything about Cody matched her taste just perfectly. She always wanted a guy that was adorably sweet and airheaded, yet intelligent and thought-provoking at the same time. All the same. Someone who was fun-loving and a bit of a dork, clumsy and fidgety. She had always had a thing for dimples, and guys on the slightly scrawny side that wore oversized clothing. Additionally, she never minded if their hair was a bit untidy. In other words, Cody was just the guy that she had always wanted. He was ideal, and she would not just give up just because she was feeling nervous. The door flung open. Hey there, Roxy," Cody greeted as he grinned at her. "Sorry it took a moment for me to get the door. I was just getting things ready for tonight, you know." Roxy sent him a grin of her own, ignoring her gut instinct screaming at her to turn back around, as she only stepped further into the house. "Do you live here with roommates?" she asked for conversation's sake as she entered the foyer, craning her neck in an effort to look up at the staircase that led to the second floor. "Nope, just by myself," Cody grinned. "I don't do too well with a lot of other people. Although sometimes I have an occasional visitor who likes to stay for a bit. Come on in, I'll show you around. Oh, you don't mind taking off your shoes, do you? I really don't like wearing shoes in the house. It brings in dirt." "I don't mind," Roxy confirmed, removing her white, strappy sandals immediately after being requested. After all, she was rather used to removing her shoes inside the house as well, and had a bit of trouble understanding why people didn't mind carrying all the dirt and germs that they had acquired outside through their living room space. Honestly, I don't know, it's a force of habit. Glancing at Cody's own feet, she noted that he had his shoes removed as well, and stood in with a pair of mismatched socks. One green sock having avocados on it, and the other sock being pink and having little cartoon blue elephants printed on it. He was absolutely adorable. After pausing for a quick drink of iced tea in the kitchen, Cody proceeded to show Roxy around his house. Walking through the house, it didn't take Roxy long to note while the outside of Cody's house was quite untidy and rather unkempt, the inside could not be said for the inside. While there was not much decoration or additional furniture besides the basic and necessary items, each room was spotless. No dust touched any surface, and the floors were meticulously vacuumed and mopped. Every item had its proper place, and its proper place would remain. It was apparent that despite Cody's tidy personal appearance, his living conditions were the exact opposite, as everything was clean, pristine, and organized. Several bottles of disinfectant and cleaning products, such as hand sanitizer and boxes of N95 respirator masks of hospital quantity, were stored in every room. And Roxy wondered if Cody was one of those super paranoid people. She tried to hide her laughter at the thought of Cody rushing out in pre-pandemic panic, buying packages upon packages of toilet paper, cleaning products, and non-perishable food items in bulk, as if the world was about to end. In fact, he had even answered the door in a mask and a pair of medical gloves. And he found his apparent paranoia just to be a bit overboard. Yeah, everyone had their quirks, and it was no different from her bleaching her hair and using colored contacts, she supposed. "Here's my last room I want to show you," Cody beamed, seemingly bouncing from foot to foot in his excitement at the mere prospect of showing her whatever was beyond that door. His bedroom, perhaps? After all, she didn't see any bedrooms yet, and they were on the basement level of the house. Oh shit. Why would Cody choose to sleep in the basement? "It's my favorite room ever, and I spend a lot of time in here. It's really special to me." Well, Roxy couldn't help but feel honored at these words. Something told her that Cody did not show this room to just anyone. It's almost as if he was showing her a piece of himself by allowing her access to this room. And the very thought was touching. Perhaps he really did feel a connection to her, and he wanted to let her in on one of his hobbies, something he was obviously passionate about. Yes, but it's not what you think. Wrenching the door open, Cody allowed her to step inside first, and as she did, the first thing she noticed about the room was it was small, and there was some type of large, bulky equipment inside. She couldn't really discern too many more details about the room, for the lights were currently shut off, and she wasn't exactly sure where the light switch was. Turning around, she was about to ask Cody what the room was used for, and jumped a bit upon realizing that Cody was now very close to her, definitely entering her personal space at this point. Cody had made a point to keep his distance for the entire tour of his house, and she had talked up that up to paranoia as well. Him simply wishing to socially distance and keep his space from her, something that she could definitely respect. Now, though, he was all up in her space, and for some reason, she felt very uncomfortable. Didn't she want to be close to him, though? She wanted to hug him, so why was she so bothered by the fact that he was currently looming over her, his skimpy figure still managing to tower over her menacingly? It was at that moment, too little too late, that Roxy realized that she had made a mistake. She should have never have come here. She should have trusted her gut instinct. Her legs turned to jelly and she sank to her knees, barely managing to understand, though, through a rapt sense of hearing Cody claimed she didn't look good, or maybe she could lay down for a bit. Her mind foggily returned to the iced coffee that he had offered her in the kitchen. It was obvious to her now that he had drugged her drink. Attempting to shake him away from her, she stumbled out of the room as she tried as hard as she could to make it to the stairs, as Cody only watched her feeble attempts at escape from his spot at the open door of his mystery room. If she could only climb up and make it to the front door, where she had left her purse, to get her phone, get in contact with the emergency hotline, get help, get out, get home. Tripping on the third step, Roxy fell down again as the effects of whatever drug Cody had slipped her set in. Things became fuzzy. Her sense of vision faded, and before long she could not hear anything either. Her skin felt numb, and her stomach felt sick, even though she had nothing in there to vomit. Soon enough, her state of consciousness gave up entirely. We are in very tense situations around here, and this is probably going to be an hour-long video. And do I apologize for it? Honestly, kinda not, because this is, like, as I already told y'all, this book is 67 pages. 67! So, you guys might want to get used to me reading this for a very long time. And me editing this, like, forever. Oh my goodness. Anyways, by the way, we are back to YN and Jossy. Back to us.
Over the next 2 hours, you and Jossy had not even taken one sip of beer, much to the ridicule of the others in the room, who insisted for the two of you to join them on the fun and how two of you were being buzzkills. But you paid no mind, as your current goal was to not get drunk or even to socialize. Instead, it was just to get Jossy out of this hellhole. To get Jossy the hell out of here. Honestly, if we were near the door, I would just grab Jossy and run out of the apartment complex. I would just run, get in the car, and vroom it, bro. Vroom it. Freaking vroom it to the police station. For real. Anyways, you had kept your eye on Damien for the entire night. Just as much as he was watching, you knew he was watching you. You had also noted that which guys Damien seemed to be the closest to and made sure to keep notes on possible accomplices. As soon as you had found your opening, you would not hesitate to take it. You would grab Josie's wrist and pull her to safety so fast they would not even have the chance to notice that you were gone. Not until you had already left. For those reasons, you had actually managed to snatch your bag as well as Jossy's and kept them on your person so you could be leaving no valuables at Damien's apartment, such as your phone, keys, or wallet. Sometime, a little bit before 10:30 at night, you had most likely found your chance. Damien, while being sure to keep his drinking under control, inevitably had to use the bathroom at some point. Luckily for you, it seemed that his buddies, who you assumed to be watching you, had drank a bit more than what they intended, for one guy was busy making out with another girl at the party, and the other guy was sacked on the sofa, eyes closed and only moments before passing out. As soon as you heard the door of the bathroom close and was sure that Damien was behind it, you and Jossy shared a mutual understanding before quietly getting up from your chairs and keeping your heads down in an effort to exit the apartment as quietly and as noticed as possible. Slipping out the front door and softly closing it behind you, the two of you bolted. Just knew that it would take Damien nothing but 30 seconds to a minute to go to the bathroom, wash his hands, and return to the main room of his apartment, finding you and Jossy missing. You reached out a hand and grabbed Jossy's hand while you ran, intertwining your fingers with hers and holding on tight. She had held onto your hand as rigidly as you were, even though her hand was coated in a layer of sleek sweat and her nervousness. Exiting the building, you and Jossy continued to run. You ran down the street, out over several blocks, and turned down the other side street before finding a narrow alleyway. You shouldn't have gone to an alleyway. You should have gotten into a very bright place where a lot of people were at. But it's 10:30 at night, so I doubt that would happen. But still. And by this point, the both of you were horrendously out of breath, just as you ran as your lives depended on it. I need a break. Jossy heaved, holding her free hand against her side, which was most likely cramped up at this point. Let's rest, you agreed, looking down both sides of the street, only to find no one. You breathed a sigh of relief. Even if he was following you, he didn't figure out where you had ran off to yet. Although we shouldn't stay here for long. Agreed. Jossy mumbled, finally starting to catch her breath as her hand ran through her very short hair. Even though you had stopped running at this point, she had still not let go of your hand. My hair used to be really long, you know, Jossy muttered, obviously attempted to start up a conversation with you, and for some reason you just knew there was more to the story. Yeah? You asked how long? Pretty long, she confirmed. I've always wanted really long hair, ever since I was little. I actually managed to grow it down to my waist. It took years. Why'd you cut it? You asked in curiosity. I think that your pixie cut looks absolutely amazing on you, but why'd you cut your hair if you like long hair so much? Jossy looked at you for a moment before sending you a better smile. I didn't cut it. She eventually confided in you. He did. Damien? You asked for confirmation, voice mixed with both surprise and disgust. Jossy nodded, tearing up slightly as she did so. I've wanted to leave this relationship for a while now, she confessed, ever since the first time he hit me. But he would never let me leave. He threatened me, my family, my friends. Eventually, my family moved back to Egypt, where we're originally from, so I didn't have to worry about them anymore. But he always seemed to have a hold over me. So one day I thought, what if I cheated on him? Maybe he would never be able to forgive me for it. So he would let me leave. So I cheated on him with a girl from one of my math classes, but when he found out, he never trusted me ever again. With anyone. To take matters worse, he brought a pair of scissors to my hair and cut it all off. It looked horrible. Jossy began to cry out now her tragic story, and you managed to grab her free hand, holding on to both hands and squeezing them for reassurance. Jossy, in response, took a step closer to you and leaned her head against your shoulder for comfort. So close you could feel her shaky breath against your collarbone, and the flutter of her eyelash extensions as they blinked against the skin of your neck. My cousin, who still lives near here, is a hairdresser. Jossy continued to speak. She cut my hair for me and styled it really well. She laughed a little at this time at the memory. She said she'd make it look just like Aubrey Hepburn. She did an amazing job on it, Jossy. You smiled softly. Jossy wrapped her arms around your waist next and pulled you closer. I wish we met under different circumstances, YN. She muttered. Hey, I told you already, didn't I? You asked. I promised I'd get you out. You can stay with me for as long as you want. I'll sneak you into my dorm if I have to. Your gaze met Jossy's, and you felt something else besides pity deep in the pits of your gut. Briefly, your mind traveled back to Cody, but you pushed him away again. He had Roxy after all. Jocelyn! An enraged, threatened voice bellowed out of the other side of the street, and you instantly let go of Jossy, shoving her behind you. You would not let this thug get to her. Bruh, it's getting so good! Ah! Like, oh my god, it's getting so good. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be the longest video I've ever made in my entire life. Will I regret this? Definitely. This might have to be posted on Friday. Oh goodness. Oh, this is so long. Oh my goodness. Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to leave y'all bitches on the cliffhanger. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I gotta keep it interesting. Oh my goodness. Well, first off, I would like to say fuck Damien. Justice for Jossy. Justice for Cody / not. Kind of. You know, like justice for him, what he suffered. But you know, justice for that, justice, a little bit of justice for that other girl, even though she was a bitch to us. She needs justice for herself. You know what I'm saying? I don't think she's realizing what terrible she's doing to her own body. She probably realizes, but can't control it because she's so used to it. She needs someone by her side to help her out. Because healing is not always an alone process. You don't have to heal on your own. Other people can help heal with you, along by your side. It really does. Also, before I continue on my rant, what do you guys think is going to happen next to Jossy? Do you think that Jossy will be able to get away from Damien? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think they'll be able to get away without any altercations? Let me know in the comments down below as well. For me, I don't think they're going to get out without some altercations and maybe some bruising. They're probably going to have to run a lot and probably run to a public area where everyone is there. They see a lot of people to get Jossy away from her, hopefully, ex-boyfriend. I really hope that Jossy does not die in this series because I will literally cry. Because Jossy, my girl deserves justice and she deserves better. Honestly, if you're in a relationship like Jossy is, and you're in this current situation, and you're watching this video, and you're right here, right now with me, talking with me, or listening to me, please get out of it as soon as possible. Do not stay because you feel bad. There's absolutely no excuse why someone should be hurting you like that. Absolutely, I don't want to hear no excuses. No one should be hurting you like that. Nobody. I mean nobody. Not even your grandmama. No one should be hurting you like this. You have a right to be respected, to be loved, to be cared about, and to not get hurt. You know what I'm saying? So fuck Damien. I hope you're a piece of garbage. I can't believe that one of my close family members his name is Damien, is also Damien in the story. So fuck this Damien, not the Damien I know. So fuck this Damien in the story, not the one I love and care about. But you know, I doubt my Damien's gonna turn out like this. But if he does, I'm gonna beat his ass. But anywho, guys, I do hope you found this very hour-long video very entertaining. This is probably gonna take me forever to edit, but I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Because this story is very amazing. I absolutely love this story. This probably might be one of my ultimately new favorites. I'm really happy about it. I know this is like probably the first hour-long video in a while I've done like a couple hour or close hour-long videos, but this is the hour-long video, so it's gonna be really long. But yeah, anywho, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Y'all guys better be liking, subscribing, and hit the notification bell. Y'all better be doing that, cause it helps the channel grow and show to more people that are share the same interests as you and love listening to these fan fictions. So yeah, yes, it's getting good. What I would like to mention is I do like the way that it represents certain things. Like, hey, this girl might seem like a bitch, or is a bitch, but look what's behind those curtains. And we're seeing how Cody's, date, I forgot her name, actually acts to herself. Like, y'all say, like, she has bleaching skin and all that, which is certainly unhealthy. Don't do that. But yeah, I mean, and then we're also seeing some other sides of ourselves as well. And Cody's finally, a little chaotic side of himself, but he's still fucking adorable. I can't help it. He's so fucking adorable. I have a feeling that he probably killed his parents, but I would too. They deserve it. But yeah, I like seeing these other sides of these characters, and also with Jossy. Like, at first, she's represented as this amazing, sweet, kind of, funny girl. But in reality, she is the same person, but still, she has an abusive boyfriend, and messed up her life, wanted to leave, but a very toxic, nasty relationship that she wants to get out of, but she needs help getting out of it. And you know what? I'm really happy that the author is showing more of this, because this is reality. Some people have to go through this and just need some help, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes that bitchy person that's being really mean to you has more insecurities than you will probably, hopefully, ever have. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really happy that this story is showing more of that, because, showing more of these sides should be not particularly normal, but it should be more viewed on, because there's always more sides to the story than what is shown sometimes, and it is what it is. If you're in these type of situations, please call for help. Please, if you can get someone to help you, get someone to help you. So that's all I really want to say, because I know there's some people out there that probably do need these type of, just need some assistance and would love to have at least a little bit of help in their lives. But anywho, without further ado, because this is quite long and I don't want to make it longer than it already has. Yo girls, sadly gotta go. I really do hope that you guys are enjoying this fan fiction so far. It's getting good. It's getting really good. And I would like to make some side note by saying also that we are going to be reading more stories, and there's a new vote on my community and my channel. So if you guys want to go ahead and go to my channel, go to communities, there's a whole voting thing going around. Instead, the vote will work a little bit differently. So I have like 4 options for 4 different fan fictions. They're all from different fandoms. They might be similar, but not all the same. You guys get to choose, and whoever has the highest vote, I guess that one. But I'm also going to pick 2 or 3 books out of it, and I think all 4 of the books will be recycled to be an option later, because some of them are just very bring more awareness out there. So I would like to continue putting those as options. I might read those eventually, but not now. But so far I believe there is about 19 votes right now, but it might have completely changed by now, so I'm not going to show it on the screen. But yeah, go ahead and choose which book I should be reading, and the first and the second highest votes, I will be reading those 2 particular stories. So we shall see. And if they're like both 50-50, then I'll go ahead and do rock, paper, scissors or something. I don't know. Or some type of like crossword or something like that. We'll see. We will see. It's gonna get a little interesting. Anyways, without further ado, I got to go, y'all. Have fun. Stay safe. And stay positive. Bye. In peace.